My name is Eitan Aylon. I broke into tech sales at 18, and in this video, I'm going to break down the backdoor application system that I used to land 3 six-figure job offers before I even finished high school, when I had no skills, no experience, and I barely even knew what tech sales was. And this is the exact same system that everybody in my program uses to do the same thing and skip college. By the end of this video, you'll know everything you need to know about tech sales. You'll know how to stand out in this job market where people with degrees are struggling, how to set up your LinkedIn account, what messages to send recruiters to get interviews, what to say on those interviews, and how to use the fact that you're 18 as an advantage. And I'm not gonna hold anything back. So if you don't want to go to college and just aren't sure where to start, do not leave this video, because by the end of it, you'll know everything you need to know about tech sales and the backdoor application system to skip college the exact same way that I did. And before we jump into everything, I do want to take a second to talk about why the backdoor application system even exists. And the only reason this even exists is because you can't just apply to a job and expect to get interviews. I mean, you probably know better than me. I have so many friends in high school, and even my girlfriend tried to apply to Starbucks, Burger King, McDonald's, and just heard nothing back continuously. So can't even imagine the same thing if you try to do that for six-figure corporate sales job, whatever you want to call it. Because at the end of the day, if you're a recruiter, you're looking at resumes of people and you're seeing someone who didn't even go to college, you'll just skip over that super fast, let alone the AI that's probably actually going to screen it. So you absolutely need to find a different way to be able to stand out and just demand their attention. And before we jump into everything in just a second here, I do want to give you an idea, because just 2 months before I landed my first offer, I had no idea what tech sales even was. I didn't even hear of the industry, and I was just doing all my college apps, and I just accepted the fact that I was going to go to college. Even though I knew that it doesn't align with my goals, I had no idea how I was going to pay for it, and I definitely did not want to spend 4 years doing that with people that I didn't really align with. And the only reason that I was doing it and spending so much time on college apps and SAT prep is because I just didn't know what else to do. It was the next natural path, and I saw literally every single other person around me doing the same thing. And I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had a couple of little businesses here and there, but I just never made nearly enough money to be able to actually do that full time after high school. So I just went along with it. And the entire time, as I was doing my college apps, I was so unproductive. And I remember I would put full days where I block on my calendar, right? Where I'll just study for the SATs, or I'll write some essays. And that means time without my family, without my girlfriend. I used to leave the house just so I can actually lock in, wake up super early. And I'll just procrastinate when I was doing it. Like, that's time when sometimes I didn't even go to the gym. And then at the end of the day, I get to bed and I'm like, what have I actually got done today? So I didn't get to see my friends, my family, my girlfriend. I didn't get to go to the gym because I wanted to lock in. And I didn't even write that many pages. It was just like a waste of time. And that kind of continued that way. My girlfriend and my mom actually noticed it as well. And they told me after the fact. And the tipping point for me was when I watched Alex Hormozi video, where he talked about how he convinced his neighbor to drop out of college and get into tech sales, right? He talked about how he was 20, he had 200 grand in the bank, made around 200K in a year. And in that video, he just explained that the reason that I was going along with everything, like I was saying, is not because it aligned with my goals and it's something that made sense for what I want to do with my life and my future, but just because it was the next natural path. I saw everybody doing it, and it was basically a box checked at birth. And he asked a question that probably was a little bit deeper with all the context. He asked, in 4 years from now, right, giving the cost and the opportunity cost, what do you think will set you up best for your life, going to college or not? And for me, it was really obvious. And I thought that if his neighbor can do it, why can't I do it too? I believed enough in myself to know that if I had the chance to actually get it on an interview and I got a couple of tries, then I think that I could get at least one try where I do good enough and be able to get an offer. And I knew that's all I needed, just one good offer, and that could help me do what I want to do. So I decided I'll finish all my college apps, and then I'll go all in. Worst case, I'll do it for 1 year. It'll be a gap year and maybe make like 80, 90K and actually have something to pay for college if that's what I want to do after that 1 year. And then best case, I get to not go to college at all. I get to make 6 figures, continue to grow in that career, make more, and learn actual essential skills, and that I can then put into my own business or anything else that I want to do in life, and do that with people that actually resonate with a lot more and actually align with my goals. And that's exactly what I did. I was able to sign a 6-figure job offer 3 or 4 months before I finished high school. I finished my classes, and then one day after I started working, I was able to then get promoted around 4.5 months later, where I'm actually making even more money and learning even skills that are more important for me. And I'm doing that in tech sales, right? So entry-level position in tech sales is an SDR, which stands for Sales Development Representative. It could be a BDR, Business Development Representative, both mean the same thing, where you're basically cold calling people, you're messaging them on LinkedIn, on emails to get them on sales call, where you're not actually the one selling them at first either. Obviously, making cold calls and getting somebody to get on a sales call is a lot harder than you'd think, right? It takes a lot of confidence, a lot of power, and you need to be able to sell them why it's worth being on that call. And the reason that I was able to do it straight out of high school and you could do it is because there's no sales degree in college, sales major really. Most people are studying business, and it's not necessarily things that are very applicable to the day-to-day of the job itself. I remember my dad, he works in finance, and he always told me when he hires accountants straight out of college, he basically assumes they know absolutely nothing about the job itself. So they're teaching them from nothing. And it's the exact same thing in tech sales. For SDRs, they're not expecting them for the most part to have experience because they're going to teach them on the job. There's actually certain companies like the one I went to that prefer people that haven't worked at any other companies before, so they don't have any bad habits and can just learn their process. I also really like the fact that I can actually control my own income, and if I perform better, I will make more money because on top of my salary, I'll also get commission off the sales that I make. And it's just crazy to me that just a couple of months ago, I completely accepted the fact that I was going to spend the next 4 years of my life in college getting into debt with people that are going to be partying every single night. And not just the fact that I accepted doing that, but the fact that I was going to accept doing that without actually giving myself a chance to be able to do something else. And now I want as many people as possible to be able to do the same thing that I did, to be able to skip college if that's not what's right for them, and to be able to break into tech sales, learn skills that are important for them with people that they might care about more without getting into debt, but actually getting paid to learn those skills if that's what they believe is best for them. Because all I did after that video, I finished my college apps in like 2 weeks. I took 1 week to study about the industry, which I'll try to condense in this video here. And then I just did my resume and I started applying. And 57 days later, I had multiple 6-figure job offers, where most people would go to college for 4 years, get into thousands of debts, and still struggle to do that, right? And usually even take more than 2 months. Because I just interviewed at so many different places that I didn't even care about at first. I just got really good at interviewing. I learned what they care about, and then I was able to go to the places that I actually wanted to go to. I knew how to get an interview, I knew what to do well, and then I was able to get the offers there. And that's how I was able to do it in a way that's actually repeatable, to where I had multiple offers. But when I actually accepted the one that I did, I walked away from 7 other processes that I was in the middle of interviewing for. And that's exactly what I'm about to walk you through. Exactly how you can do the exact same thing for yourself. How I would do it if I was to start right now, and probably even do it faster if I was able to avoid some of the mistakes that I was. And basically a video that I wish I had before I started doing this. And the problem with the market right now, there's so many people applying and looking for jobs. There's a lot more people looking for jobs than there are jobs. And I looked up a couple of stats right before this video. Only 2% of candidates who actually apply for a job opening are even selected for an interview. So for an average corporate job opening, there is around 250 resumes per position. Only around 4 to 6 applicants of the 250 get interviewed, and then around 1 person gets the job. So what are the chances that that 1 person that actually gets the job is the one that didn't go to college, the one who's 18, 19, 20, doesn't have that much experience? They would need to be really good at standing out of the 250 people, which the one thing they will stand for is being so young. That will definitely help you stand out. And they will need to be able to actually crush the interview and understand what they're looking for. So the first part of actually standing out enough to get the interview in the first place is what the backdoor application system. And the way it works is very simple. You're just not going to simply spray and pray is what they call it. You do so many job applications and hope and pray that they will actually select you for an interview, but you're actually going to be very targeted for each one. So the way that looks is you'll make a list of those companies, and we'll dive into it a little bit more in depth in a second. But you'll make the list, you'll start applying, but before you actually submit your job applications, you'll find other SDRs or account executives, which are closers, basically other salespeople in that company, and you'll start reaching out to them, whether that be through LinkedIn DMs. I'll show you the exact messages that I have. But you're basically just gonna be like, hey, congrats on the job, man. Looks like you're doing great. Would love to find a time to connect and hear about your experience. And then you're gonna try to hop on those calls, and you'll do that right through LinkedIn, through your email is where you'll message them. You'll get on a call with them. On that phone call, you'll talk a little bit about their experience on their role, ask what advice they might have for you, and then you'll try to get a referral. Probably like 80% of the case, if you get a referral, you'll be able to get at least an interview from that company. And then if you weren't able to get a referral for that company, all you do is you'll apply from the website, not from where most people will actually apply, but specifically from the website. And then you'll do the same thing to the managers, the recruiters themselves. You'll DM them, email them, actually cold call them as well, and you'll try to get an interview from them that way. And the reason this works is because you just stand out so much. Right out of the 300 people that apply, most people are just spraying and praying, applying to job after job after job, and are playing the volume game. But the reality is that unless their resume is really good, the chances is they're not going to be able to do it. When you get a referral, you usually get an interview, so it works out that way. And there's actually an incentive for the person to give you a referral, which is why it works. And then when you actually apply to the manager, they have no choice but to notice you, right? They will get other messages, they will get other emails, but they're likely not going to get any cold calls. I remember when I was doing my research, I saw actually a manager that posted all of the stats. So he said, I posted a job application. 300 people applied, 50 people DM'd me on LinkedIn, 20 people sent me an email, 2 people cold called me, and then at the end, the 2 people that cold called me are the one that actually got the job. And when you DM them, email them, and cold call them, not only are you getting their attention and you're standing out, but you're literally doing the job to get the job. You're proving them you can do what it takes to be an SDR, where you're going to email, DM people, and cold call them. And some managers are just going to respect the fact that you have what it takes to at least pick up the phone and cold call them, because most people are going to be too scared to do that they'll just give you an interview just for that and are going to give you a pretty easy time. Others are not, but there will be those that just give you an interview and schedule it just because of that. And what that then allows you to do when you use the backdoor application system, you can get so many interviews and get so many reps and get really, really good at interviewing to a point where you learn what they're looking for. You refine your answers really well. You're not longer nervous when you do it. You come off a lot more confident, and then you actually perform well. And then not only did you show them you can do the job to get the job, you actually did really good on that interview, and you actually stand out a ton because you're so young while doing this, right? You're showing them you can do the job even though you're 18 and actually performing the interview well. They're just going to respect it so much. I had a manager specifically telling me that, right? The fact you're doing this at 18, actually probably multiple of them, the fact you're doing this at 18 is so impressive, and they told me they just wanted to get to know me on a personal level, and they just really, really respected that, because some managers in sales, a lot of people nowadays are wishing that they did the same, right? When I'm working my job now, most people are telling me, wow, I wish you did. I did that too, right? And I was able to get in straight out of high school and just start working. Now I want to dive in a little bit more into the details for each part of this, right? For your resume, for your LinkedIn, the actual messages that I used so that you can copy it and make it yourself. So the first thing that you're going to want to have is a LinkedIn account. And if you don't have one, you literally just make one. It takes probably 1 minute. I didn't have one when I first started. Pretty similar to Instagram. You have your profile picture. Make sure that's something that looks professional. There's a couple of different websites that you can use to do that. And you can just use Nana Banana or whatever that's called, ChatGPT, to make a picture of AI if you don't have a real one. And those look pretty decent too. You want to have a pretty short headline. So recent grad, looking for SDR roles, open to SDR roles, and nationally ranked student athlete, looking for SDR roles in tech. That's actually exactly the one that I had. And you don't want to write any aspiring sales development representative in future SDR. And that just comes off pretty cringy. It looks pretty unprofessional when you just have future, right? That's not your job title yet. It's just what you're looking for. And then for the experience section on the bottom, all you do is you copy it from your resume, and you can use ChatGPT to make it a little bit shorter so it fits in. But generally the same things, right? 2 to 3 bullet points, the same way you would on your resume, and you'll be all good to go. And then after you have your experience and your profile, your short headline, what you want to do, and have a little short, tell me about yourself, make it about 1 or 2 sentences, maybe 3, doesn't need to be too long. A little bit about your experience, in the same way that you will have on your resume, which we'll talk on. Again, again in a second. And the reason that I wanted to mention LinkedIn first is because on LinkedIn, they'll see how many connections you have, which is basically like followers you would on Instagram. And after you get 500, it doesn't show any. And it looks pretty weird and almost unprofessional. Like it stands out when somebody has a really low amount, the same way they would on Instagram. So you want to try to get a bunch of connections first before even working on your resume. Just put a profile picture, just connect with SDR people, AEs, SDR managers in your area. Just shoot connections without saying anything so you can get that number up a little bit. Another thing you can do is connect with LinkedIn sales influencers. You can just search up Ask ChatGPT or the top 30 LinkedIn sales influencers, and that way you actually have mutual connections, and so it shows when you connect with someone, and then when you reach out to SDRs and to managers, they're more likely to actually accept your connection request. In terms of your resume itself, and which you'll probably work on a little bit more in depth and then just copy it to your LinkedIn, that's definitely the way you should go about it. And there's gonna be so many more in-depth videos that just talk about your resume. Probably know a little bit more because at the end of the day, I use those videos to make my resume. And that's not really what you came here for. But the biggest mistakes that I see people making are actually worrying about their resume too much. I mean, spending so much time on it. Yeah, you want it to be good, professional, and have something that stands out. But at the end of the day, that's not how you're going to get most of the interviews. You'll get them through referrals and through outreaching to managers. And then sometimes they'll almost ask for your resume, almost like a formality, right? Because they're going to ask you about all of your experiences in the interviews. Here are a couple videos on the screen right now, and that I use. They were very helpful for me and definitely recommend watching. But the biggest advice that I will give you in terms of what to actually do is going to be to not spend that much time, to not overthink it that much. Do some research, work with 1 or 2 videos and work on it for a couple hours, look at it the next day, revise it, give it to one more person. You can shoot me a DM if you don't have anybody, and then just move on and start applying to job applications and reaching out to people. Because there's so many people that waste so much time on this part, but that's not how they're actually going to get the interviews at the end of the day. So the little bit of advice I will give about the resume, just use a simple template. Use a lot of numbers, same way you would for college apps. Really try to bring numbers and actual increases and improvements that you can put in numbers for everything. Keep it to 1 page, and don't worry about having expected high school graduation at the top, because so many times they're not even going to look at it. And when I tell you so many times, I mean 95% of the interviews I had, they just had no idea until halfway through the interview. And it's so funny because there's the first thing on my resume in big, in bold, high school expected graduation. In almost every single interview, out of the tens of interviews that I did, except for probably 1 or 2, they had no idea when they were coming into the interview that I was still in high school. Until he obviously came in when they asked me questions and I told them, and it actually helped me stand out. But it didn't prevent me from actually getting the interview. And a big part of it is because the first thing that happens when you look at a resume, they're just going to go straight into the link you're going to have at the top to your LinkedIn. And they'll just read all the experiences from them. And from LinkedIn, it just stands out a little bit less, the fact that you're still in high school, in the education section at the bottom. After you do your resume, it'll be pretty easy to find job applications. And I'll show you exactly how to do it. I just grabbed my laptop, go into LinkedIn. First thing actually came up is job opportunities, but just describe the job you want. And I'll go sales development representative. It's that simple. And then you can filter here at the top, right? So there'll be United States. That's the location. You can go more specifically, I'll do New York. You can filter by date posted. And if you want to do past week, there'll be less, but those are going to be easier and to very quickly get an interview for. You can search by company. You can search by under 10, but very quickly, it just shows you a bunch, right? You do the location. You don't need to overthink that too much. You can do remote if you want to do remote, but over here, I already have a ton, and I live up in New York, so there's going to be more than if it's a little city, but you can always do remote. And then what you want to do is salesperson, complex rehab. That's not probably what I want, but I'll say business development representative. And I'll just go scroll down really quickly, and I want to make sure it's a company, and they'll decently be open to the fact that it's not a degree. And this is what I mean by it. And it's still going to be a surprise to everybody. But if I go to this one, about the job, I press more. And then it says your background requires bachelor degree in business, marketing, or related field. That's the first thing. So that's not ideal. And he also wants 1+ year of outbound sales development, right? So that's not necessarily what I really want to go for. So I'll go for the next one. Salary, 80 to 140. About the role, what you'll do. Must-haves. Okay, so have executed sequences with the best in industry reply rate, experiences prospecting, know how to get replies from VPs, 2 years of experience in school, played sports in high school, right? So this is better. It literally doesn't mention college at all, but it's looking for more experience than I am, right? Senior SDR is going to look for more. For business development representative, same thing. I'll look here. What you should consider this role and impact. Ideal candidate profile, 0 to 1 year of experience, and consistent tracks, strong time management, experience prospecting, comfortable using tools, which is very easy to get comfortable in. Literally to get comfortable in, I just searched up a YouTube tutorial for each of the tools, which was just like ZoomInfo and LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and you get comfortable in it enough for the interviews and for the actual jobs, because they will train you at the beginning. And that's it, founder mentality and curious. So that would be a job that I then save, right? And I'm not going to apply here, but what I will do is go to this tracker that I have right here that I made. I'll go here and I'll press the company name. So it was New People. That way it's really just to stay organized. And New People, the salary range is 80 to 90 year. And the reason it's a range is because for every sales job, there will be a base. For SDR, the base will be 50 to 60K, sometimes 70, that's where I'm at. And then you get commission for the deals, either the deals are closed or the meetings you book that actually show, where you'll make the rest of the money, where you can get to 90, 100, 120K. So then I'll write the position, just SDR, BDR, and I'll write the type. And the stage, I just made this for you guys. I'll put a link down below so you can take a look at it if I was able to get a referral. All right, so that's just to stay organized. Very quickly, you can keep going. I'll go into the next one. I'll just very quickly see, what was it? More. What do they care about? That's their process, which is nice to know. Where you bring 8 months of cold calling says nothing about college, right? And your experience of actually cold calling can be cold calling managers, right? So all of this is like kind of optional. It's a nice to have. Like that's if you have a resume, and then they'll look at that and they'll be like, okay, do we have this to be able to give him an interview? But when you cold call and you DM them and you email them, then you kind of bypass that. And those aren't really things that they're going to ask you. One, on the interview itself, like they'll ask you about your experience, but they're not like 8 months of cold calling, especially not if you cold call them and show them that you can do it to get the interview in the first place. Now, when it comes to actually finding people and outreaching to those people, that's exactly what you're gonna do. So to find them, very simple, just go to that company on LinkedIn, go to people, search sales development representative, business development representative, open all of those in a tab, put them back into the tracker, and just press connect. Don't put any note on it at all, because the chances of them connecting without a note is actually higher. And then if you ask for a referral or anything like that, then you use Apollo AI, you sign up, you have a free trial. After that, it costs $60. When that's over, you can get their email that way. And then while you're waiting for them to accept it, what you're going to do is write them an email. The subject line is going to be interested in company dash would love your insights, and that gets them to actually open it, because they think you might actually be a prospect or a lead and that's interested in talking more, and then they'll at least open the email. And you don't really need to sell yourself in those that much. I'll put an example of one of mine on the screen, but pretty much just compliment them, ask for the time, and not very, very hard. And then you'll do the same thing on LinkedIn when they accept. And you can also like some of their posts. That definitely doesn't hurt. And a lot of them will do, because they know you're looking for a referral and they actually get paid to refer. Then hop on that call with them, spend a couple of minutes asking them about their experience, any advice they might have for you. Don't take too long. 10 minutes in, just ask for the referral. I like to always set it up in a way where I ask, what advice do you have for me? What does the interview process look like? And I'm like, okay, really appreciate your time, man, and help me a ton, and I'm planning on applying, and would you be open to giving me a referral? Something like that. It's up to them, and you're going to apply anyway, so they might as well give you the referral and have the chance of actually making the money. And 90% of the time, if you get a referral, you'll actually get an interview. Now, in those cases where you don't hear from any SDRs or BDRs after 2 days, just apply. Don't apply through LinkedIn, but apply through the website itself, because it's 2 different pools of people that apply, and there's less people that apply through the website, so it's easier to stand out. Just apply, write the answers. Don't think about it too much, because that's not how you're going to get the interview. You'll just find the managers the same way you did before, go to the company, search up SDR manager, sales leader, do the exact same thing. Now when you actually connect with them, do put a note. Just say, just applied to the recent SDR opening, excited to connect. Put an exclamation mark, do the same thing, write them an email. This time in the email, you can mention just applied for the SDR role. You can say student athlete, just applied for the SDR role, recent grad, something like that. And this time you do want to sell yourself a little bit more. So just apply to the recent SDR role and given something about how exciting the company is. Tell a little bit about yourself, right? I'm a recent grad and about to graduate pretty soon. I'm a student athlete. This is what I rank. This is what I've done in the past and would love to find the time to connect. This time I do want you to follow up with them actually, right? So a day or two if you don't hear right back to that email. Don't just like bump it up, but actually add some sort of value. So that means wanted to add something like this because this company is particularly appealing to me because of, and then say whatever the mission is, which really aligns with my goals because of, and would love to find a time to connect. And you'll be able to get a good amount of responses from that. But if you really want to stand out, right, you'll text them again on LinkedIn as well, and you will even sell them like a selfie video of yourself on LinkedIn and saying, hey, just applied to the SDR role and this is a little bit about myself. Super excited because of this. Love to find a time to connect if you think it makes sense. You'll stand out way more because there'll be less than one person doing it for every 300. And if you really want to stand out, that's when you'll use Apollo to get their phone number. I would only do this for the SDR managers because on the emails and the LinkedIn, you can reply, you can reach out to recruiters as well. But when it comes to cold calling, I would just call the SDR managers because recruiters can get a little mad. But SDR managers are teaching people to cold call all day. And after having cold called SDR managers asking for an interview and having actual cold calls to make sales, I can tell you it's way easier and way less cold because if you just open by saying I just applied for the recent job application, they're actively looking for people to hire, right? They want what you have. And even if you sound a little bit nervous, a lot of them will love the fact that you're doing it. Some of them will be the first time if it's a smaller company and anybody ever cold call them for a role. So you will immediately stand out. I had multiple people tell me, oh wow, I never had anybody cold call. And some of them are excited for it. Some of them are going to be a little surprised. They're not going to know what to say. You can just say, just applied for the role. And company was really appealing me because of this. So I figured, and I give it a shot, show you I can do the job, or I put a script that you can actually read and exactly what I used to say. And you can tell a little bit about yourself and be like, really wanted to find a time so we can interview. And it'll be a lot easier. Some of them will literally just, like I had one that I just told him, I just applied to the recent role opening and he was like, okay, hold on, what's your name? And he was like, okay, let me pull up my computer. And then he found me. He was like, oh, I can't find you. And then he went through the trash folder in LinkedIn, which is where it went automatically. And he was like, yeah, it's probably because I still haven't graduated. And I was like, oh, that's why. Yeah, we'll automatically screen those out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm graduating in a month. That's when I'll start working. He was like, oh, okay. And so I just took it out and I'll send you like a link to my calendar so you can schedule an interview. And then you'll just have the interview just like that. And not only do you actually have the interview, but this will actually make the interview a lot warmer because you took the initiative to cold call them and they'll be excited for that because you'll be the only one that did it pretty much for him, especially if it's a smaller company. And you already have somewhat of a conversation. They'll know what your voice sounds like. So make it a little bit of a warmer interview. And that's how you'll get a ton of interviews. Right, by reaching out to SDRs and AEs and then only applying if you don't get a referral from them, and then actually reaching out to the managers and standing out. And you can get a ton of interviews this way, you'll get a ton of reps, and you'll learn what it actually takes to be able to perform, and just so you have an understanding of what it actually looks like. Because usually you're going to have your first round, which is going to be like a 15-minute phone call or an interview with a recruiter. Then you'll have a 20 to 30-minute interview with an SDR manager, and then you'll have some sort of test or assessment, which is usually going to be to either write a cold email or a cold call, and then you'll have the final one, which is might be with somebody else where you actually, depending on the company, and might be like a VP of sales where it's really more of a formality. But honestly, if you have just the same skills that it takes to go through the first one consistently, then you have pretty much what it takes to get through the rest of them as well. Because they're all going to ask you, literally every company is going to ask you almost the exact same thing. They're going to tell you to tell them, they'll be like, tell me about yourself in the first one. And then they're going to ask you, okay, cool, why do you want to do sales? And then they're going to ask you, why do you want to work at this company? And the way that you stand out is by actually combining all of those in that first one. So when you say, tell me about yourself, talk a little bit about your past. Make that 30 seconds. So you don't want to answer more than like 1 minute per answer that you have for each question. For that, tell me about yourself. You can keep it a minute and a half. Maybe 40 seconds about your past, 20 seconds about why that led you to want to do sales, and then do 20 seconds about why specifically you want to do it at that company, and then be like, and you really want to make it a little bit more conversational versus an interview. So this is a little bit about myself. I grew up here, grew up playing sports, very competitive always, and that's what actually led me to do sales. That's how I came across about it in the first place, because I love sports and how competitive it is. I saw a lot of similarities between sales and sports, and that's actually specifically why I want to do it at your company, because of how competitive it is, but so team-oriented at the same time. And then you give your answer and ask them, is there anything else that you want me to dive a little bit deeper into? That way it makes it a little bit more conversational. They're probably going to say no, but they might be like, oh yeah, that's really cool that you did that. Can you tell me more about that? And that's good, right? Because it makes it less of an interview. You stand out more from the rest of the people, even if they just go on with their next question. And this first impression that you have on that first question is really important. That's where they're like, understand if they want to move you or not already off the get-go. People judge very, very fast, even if they're going to go through 10 more minutes in the interview. And you want them to actually have a good time. You want to smile, and you can ask them a little bit about themselves as an icebreaker, but any experience that they have in their LinkedIn and they do before. You can do your research, because they run through that same script so many times, day after day after day, and they can get tired of just asking those same questions and talking to people that are boring. And you're actually making their job easier by answering those 3 questions faster, and you leave more time for just having conversations. And then, other than just having that answer prepared out and really well, so you want to write it down a little bit, make a couple of edits. You want to film yourself saying it over and over and over again until you're really good at saying it. You can say in less than 90 seconds. And then I want you to prepare 3 stories about your life. So one of them is going to be a time where you failed at something and what you learned from it. One of them is going to be a time where you worked really hard on something and you learned something. But just 3 stories in general, because those stories are going to be how you answer a lot of other questions. Because in most interviews, they might ask you, tell me a little bit about like 3 strengths and 1 weakness that you have. How do you go about planning and managing your time? What does a day in your life look like? Where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you think separates the best SDRs from the worst ones? What have you built that you're most proud of? And tell me about a time where you faced repetitive setbacks while pursuing an important goal. How did you handle that? What type of roles are you applying to? Right, so you want to prepare to those questions. Those are pretty much the ones that I find that repeat in most interviews. But when you actually prepare to those questions with a story, you can use that story to answer a lot of different questions. So for example, I had one where I tried to plan like a tennis carnival for disabled people and what I learned from that. And I was able to use that story to answer a lot of different questions about weaknesses, about strength, about managing time, right? And you're able to actually stand out when you answer by telling a story. And other than having those planned out, you want to obviously film yourself again, right? Be able to say well, which you will get better with after you have different interviews. You want to prepare some questions, right? And that's really another part, right? One at the beginning, but then you really stand on at the end when you get to ask them questions to make it a lot more conversational, because the truth you gets out versus just responding to everything that they ask. So the 3 questions that I like to ask is to tell me a little bit about the current performance of the team, maybe how many of them are hitting quota, how long it takes them to get to that point, and to make it more conversational, ask a follow-up. Like, oh cool, how long does it take them usually to get to that point? And okay, and that's very cool. And for those who actually perform and are able to exceed their quota, and I know it can look a little different from company to company, but or instead of what it looks like from company to company, but use it as like a way to actually show that you did your research. So I know from like looking at their LinkedIn's, it can take about 6 months to a year. But is there a clear track and like certain measures that need to be hit to be able to get a promotion? And then after you ask a couple of questions, really make it conversational, and you can fill them out if they want to keep talking. You can do that. But after you ask 2-3 questions, you can just do your last one, which is asking for the sale, basically showing them that you have the guts to actually ask. And you ask them if they're going to move you forward. And so I like to do it super simple. Basically just thank them for the time. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And I had a great time learning about the company. And it reinforced a lot of what I saw online, which is the reason I was interested in the first place. And based on the conversation we had, was there any concerns you have about moving me forward to the next stage? And then some of them are going to say if the interview went well, which is usually going to be not your first one, and they'll say, got no reservations on my end, they'll move you to the next one, maybe even help you schedule it. Or they might say, I actually need to talk to a couple of other people, I don't just make the decision myself, and that's basically them putting you off and telling you no. Or the third option actually is that they might actually have concerns and they will tell you them, right? I'm looking for someone who has a little bit more experience and the fact you're 18 and I don't know what my boss is going to think about that, right? And that's where it gives you the opportunity to actually overcome it in sales, and they're really going to respect the fact that you're persistent and you can overcome that objection the same way you would in sales and give them the reason why you think you'll still be able to have what it takes. And this is what the first interview with the recruiter is going to look like. The second one is going to be very similar, right? Tell me about yourself, going to be the exact same thing. They'll ask you a couple questions and they might dig in a little bit more into your experience. But it'll pretty much be the same thing as that first one with the recruiter. Usually after that, you'll have some sort of test. So they'll either ask you to cold call them, where usually they'll do it 2 times. They're not really expecting you to be the best at it, but they want to see how well and how coachable you are. So they'll do the first one, they'll give you some feedback, and then the second one, they want to see how you're able to implement the feedback that they gave you. And if it's not going to be a cold call test, it'll be an email one where they give you a little bit of time. They want you to submit an email the day before that interview, and then they'll just ask you to explain it. It's pretty straightforward. I can literally just give you a template and that I use that worked really well, and I'll put a Loom video of my explanation because the explanation of it is very important as well. They just want to see what your thought process was behind it. And after you pass that interview, it becomes pretty simple, right? You'll have that last one, but if they move you to that last one, most of the time, it's because they want to hire you. They're very close to. It's just someone that's a little bit higher, and they just wants to speak with you beforehand. It'll be much more relaxed. And at that point, a lot more conversational. You're going to want to have the talk, tell me about yourself, but much more of a conversation. And if you have everything prepared for the first and second interview, you'll have everything you need for that one as well. It's really important though that throughout the entire interview process, you have your mindset right, because it seems really easy, right? 300 people apply. I'm going to be the only one that cold calls, so I'll stand out every time. And then I'll just get a ton of interviews and then I'll know how to do the interview well and I'll be able to pass. And it really is that simple, but that's not easy because you're going to have so many times where you reach out to companies, you're not going to get any SDRs or A's to reply to you. Or you're going to cold call and nobody just picks up and you need to keep dialing. And then you get really nervous when you do it. You'll have your first interviews where you're going to shake under, and you just have to come with a mindset where you understand that that's the way it's going to be. But when you start at the beginning, you're going to put work in for a certain period of time before you see any results from it. Right? You're going to have your first couple of interviews every time and you're going to do bad at them and just get rejected. And that's the exact same way it is as an SDR too, because you're going to be cold calling people and they'll get mad and brush you off the phone. You're going to be emailing people and they're just not going to reply. And it's really important that you don't focus on the results too much at the beginning, but really just focus on your input and what you can do. So make sure you still do the outreach, you apply to the jobs, you do the cold calls, even if you doubt yourself, because you will doubt yourself and you're not going to know if you're doing the right things at the beginning. And that's exactly why I created the Backdoor Application Program, where I broke down the system from this video in a lot more detailed for your LinkedIn, for your resume, work with everybody in there to craft those messages for themselves, understand what parts in the interview process they need to focus so that they don't have to worry about whether or not they're doing the right thing and know that they are from the very beginning. And this is not for everybody. This is only for you if you're crazy enough to believe that you can actually do this right now, straight out of high school without a degree, and you want to do it right now. You don't want to go to college and waste 4 years of your life, because if you do and that's what you think is right for you, I would highly encourage you to do that. I will not judge you. That's what a lot of my friends are doing, and every single person in my graduation class, including my girlfriend and my closest friends. But if it is what you want to do and you are ambitious, you're ready to put in the work, to grind, put your head down, and get a 6-figure job straight out of high school, then that's who this program is for. And what you're going to get is 1 hour onboarding call with me, where we're going to map out the entire process for you, what that will look like in terms of your resume, your LinkedIn, and what messages you want to be writing. We'll make those templates out for you. Look at the companies that you want to apply to. You're going to have the course where I dive into details about everything we talked about, all the essential industry knowledge, the mindset, what makes a good company, all the templates that I used, how to get internal referrals on those phone calls that you have with SDRs, how to prepare for interviews. You'll have access to the community of everybody else who's trying to do the same thing, hold each other accountable, be able to practice together. And we're going to continuously, me personally, to make sure that everything is going smooth for you and with your interview process, with your resume, with your LinkedIn. And you'll be able to ask whatever questions you're struggling with in one-on-one calls, in weekly calls, in group calls. And the coolest part is we'll literally take the backdoor application system that you probably just watch and learn about and are going to go and try to do on yourself. And we'll just copy and paste that so that you can achieve the same results that I and so many other people are achieving. Because at the end of the day, all you need is one solid offer to be able to skip college, save yourself those 4 years of your life and thousands of dollars, and be able to actually spend your time learning skills, getting paid for it, and in a way that actually aligns with the type of life that you want to have. So if you're 18, 19, maybe even 20, and you don't want to go to college, and until now you weren't really sure what to do, and after this video, you know you want to break into tech sales, you see the benefit of the backdoor application system, and you can go ahead, you can leave the video now, you can go ahead and try to do it on your own. Or if you do want my help in implementing everything that we just talked about, there is a link down below. We can answer a couple of questions. If you qualify, I'll take you to my calendar. We can book a time. In that meeting, we'll show you the roadmap of what that would look like for you, what to actually focus on. Please don't book this call to waste your time. Don't book it to waste my time either. I want to work with people that are all in, who are coachable, are ready to put in the work, and are tired of waiting and they want to do this right now. So if that's you, and only if that's you, go ahead and book the call. Worst case, you will leave with a ton of free value, but go ahead, book the call, and we'll talk soon.